If you keep your eyes and ears open, lessons from God will be revealed to you. You'll find them in simple things that are all around you. Sandpipers aren't often seen in Maine, but from my summers on Cape Cod, I remember well the way they run from the water as it moves over the sand. A little like Jonah tried to run from God in chapter 1, verse 3 of his story. Jonah set out to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid his fare and went on board to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. This is the word of the Lord. And here are my thoughts. It's fun watching sandpipers on the beach. Each time a wavelet comes toward them, they turn and run with amazing rapidity. The instant it recedes, they run back just as quickly to poke their narrow bills into the sand, pecking and probing in search of tiny sand crabs to eat. They have to be quick because there's very little time between one wavelet receding and the next one coming in. It's an approach avoidance dilemma, to use a psychological term. They're stuck between wanting to approach the water and wanting to avoid it. Maybe they don't want to get their feet wet. I don't know. Jonah had an approach avoidance issue. He knew God had called him as a prophet, certainly an honor. But at the same time, he didn't want to do the prophetic work to which he had been called. The avoidance wins out as the story begins. He tries to run away. With God's help, ultimately he turns around to approach his task, though he ends up unhappy with how his efforts turn out. Poor Jonah. We may have more in common with Jonah and the sandpipers than we'd like to think. People want to be close to God and make the most of a delightful diet of love, grace, joy, and blessings. We'll eat that right up, no problem. But then God comes rushing toward us, startling us. It may even give us a fright. Should we run? God might get uncomfortably close. Maybe want us to do something that we're not so keen on, or God threatens to intrude on our space, our way of doing things. Who knows what's in that water? Do we want to get our feet wet? No matter how closely a sandpiper approaches the water, I've never seen one get its feet wet. They always succeed in avoiding the water. Approach, avoid. Approach, avoid. Back and forth they go. They never break the pattern. But we could. Come on in. The water's fine. So be it. In Fear No Evil, a personal struggle with cancer, David Watson writes today's quote: "If we leave God out of the picture, difficulties might so strip away our sense of security that we feel vulnerable, anxious, and afraid. On the other hand, those same difficulties could drive us back to God and so strengthen our faith. We have to trust God because there is really no alternative. But we will still be blessed. May the beauty of God's creation that you see and the joyful songs of birds that you hear cause you to lift your heart to God in gratitude and joy. Allow God to bless you in such small ways, and you will find that you are richly blessed.